Namo welcome back. We are reading through the Ramayana. We are in Book 1 and on Chapter 2, which is called Divine Guidance to Ramayana. The Master of the Words, hearing the sage Narada speak, worshipped the sage along with his disciples. After being worshipped, Narada, who was a Deva Rishi, took leave of him and started towards the heavens. As soon as the sage went to Devaloka, Sage Valmiki went to a place not far from the Ganges, situated on the banks of the Tamasa River. Having reached the banks of the river, that great sage, seeing the placid waters without sediment, spoke as follows to his disciples. O Bharadwaja, please see these pleasing waters without any sediment, which are like the mind of a good man. Dear one, please keep the river pot there, and give my dress made of bark, and I will enter into the sacred waters of this river. Having been told like this by the great soul Valmiki, Bharadwaja obediently gave the dress of bark to him. With all his senses under control, he took the bark dress from the hands of his student, saw the very big forest, and wandered in it. In the vicinity of that spot, he saw two very sweet-voiced Kruksha birds, who do not part from each other, moving about near the holy spot. A hunter, full of cruelty and with sinful intent, neglecting the sage's presence, killed the male bird out of the pair. When the bird fell with a blood-drenched body, the female bird started wailing pitiably, and being parted from his pair who was always with her, he who was with copper-crested wings and was intoxicated by love when he had wings. Seeing the pair being felled by the hunter, the sage, with a rightful mind, was filled with great compassion. Then that sage, seeing that the female bird was wailing in agony, felt that the slaying of the bird at that time was the sinful act, and told the following words. O hunter, since you have killed a Kruksha from the pair when they were infatuated with love, for that reason you would be denied a pleasant life for a long time to come. After uttering these words, he became thoughtful and turned his vision inside his mind. He said, What are these words uttered by me, having been distressed by the sorrow of the bird? That very great, thoughtful sage thought this, and the following words were told to his disciples by him. From out of me came out, due to the great sorrow I just experienced, the 4 lines with equal number of letters without any effort, with rhythm suitable to stringed instruments, and let it be a verse and not otherwise. Hearing these words, spoken by the sage, the disciples learned it by heart, and the teacher was greatly pleased. After taking bath in the sacred waters, following the proper way, brooding greatly over the words told by him to his students, the sage returned to his hermitage. His disciple, Bharadwaja, who was greatly learned in scriptures, followed him with humility, and followed him with his water pot full of water from the river. The sage Valmiki, who knew Dharma well, entered his hermitage, and meditating on the incident, started composing other such stories. That sage, an expert in Dharma, entered the hermitage with his disciples, sat meditating, and started composing other stories. Then came Brahma, the creator of the world, and the Lord, who has 4 heads and a great luster, desirous of seeing that great sage. Valmiki, seeing him, got up, stood there, disciplined in speech, and with folded hands. He worshipped that god and offered him water for washing his feet, a seat, and water for drinking, saluted the one who determines fate, and inquired about his welfare. Then the god sat in the great worshipful seat offered him, and signaled to sage Valmiki to sit in another seat. He then occupied the seat shown by Brahma, and when that grandfather of all the worlds has also been seated, meditated on the events that had happened in his mind, and was greatly absorbed in them. The act done by the sinner with a mind set on enmity, and killed that sweet-voiced Kruksha bird that he saw without any reason. He lamented about the Kruksha bird again and again, and recited the verse. Then Lord Brahma, with a smile, addressed the sage and said, You have indeed composed a verse. O Brahma Rishi, It is as per my will that this knowledge came into you. And, O great saint, please compose the story of Rama. In the righteous-natured, virtuous world of the wise, Rama is great. And so do a narration of the story of Rama as told by Narada. The known and unknown aspects of the story of the learned Rama, along with Lakshmana, and of the Rakshasas, as well as that of Vaidehi, though it may not have been known earlier, will be clear to your mind, and will be revealed to you. In the epic, even a single word that you write would not become a lie, and so compose the sacred and interesting story of Rama in the form of verses. As long as the mountains and rivers exist in the world, the story of Ramayana will be talked about by people. As long as the story of Ramayana, as written by you, is being told, until then you will reside in the earth, heaven, and neither world. Saying this, the god Brahma then vanished. And this made the sage and his disciples astonished. Then all his disciples, exceedingly surprised, again and again chanted the verse and were delighted. The verse with 4 lines, each line having the same number of letters, was repeatedly recited by the great sage, and this won him great praise. At that time a thought arose in Valmiki, who was capable of putting thought into action, and he decided to compose Ramayana entirely in this meter. The renowned and generous sage started writing of the glories of Rama, containing hundreds of verses, each having the same syllable, using excellent and mind-charming meaningful words. The story of Rama and the slaying of Ravana was composed by words of conjunction and compound words. He composed meaningful sentences with lucid and meaningful phrases. And now, will you please kindly listen to it. Chapter 3, Rama's Story. Having heard in a concise manner the full story of Ramayana, Valmiki, who is a righteous soul and is endowed by righteousness, further searched to know more distinctively the story of Rama. After touching the water, Valmiki sat saluting on the kusha grass seat facing the eastern direction and searched for the sequence of past events in the dharmic story of Rama. By the power of Dharma in him, he visualized Rama, Lakshmana, Sita, and Darsartha, along with their consorts, as well as countries, as well as each of their movements, laughter, conversations, and activities, in exactly the same manner as it happened. He also visualized as a third person all that happened to Rama, his wife Sita, and Lakshmana in the Dandaka forest. Sitting in meditation, that soul of Dharma, Valmiki was able to see Rama like a gooseberry fruit kept on the palm of his hand. Having seen all these principles, the great light of Dharma, Valmiki, started getting ready to write the story of Rama, who was attractive every minute, which was full of prosperity and happiness, which described in detail the principle of Dharma, which was full of gems like an ocean, and which was extremely pretty to hear. That godlike sage composed the history of the clan of Raghu, as it was earlier related to him by sage Narada. He described the birth of Rama, who was with great prowess, benevolent to all, dear to all people, who had forbearance, handsomeness, and truthfulness. He told various interesting stories after the coming sage of Viswamitra, about the breaking of the bow and his marriage with Sita. He described the argument between Rama and Parasurama, the good qualities of Dasaratha, about the crowning of Rama, and the wickedness of Kaikeyi. He described about the stoppage of the crowning, the departure of Rama, the sorrow and the wailing of the king, and the departure to the other world. He described about the group of people, the abandoning them by Rama, talk with Guha, and the returning of the charioteer. He described about the crossing of the Ganges, meeting with Bharadwaja, and reaching Chitrakuta, as per the advice of the sage. He described about the construction of a house, the coming of Bharata, and the performance of the funeral rites of his father by Rama. He described about the crowning of the slipper by Bharata and his entry into Nandigraman, the going of Rama to Dandakaranyam, and his killing of Virata. He described his seeing of Sarabdanga and his conversation with Suthikshna. the friendship of Sita with Anasuya, and her application of sending unguents to her body. He described about the meeting with the sage Agastya, the meeting with Jatayu, going to Panchavati, and the meeting with Surpanaka. He described the argument with Surpanaka and her disfigurement, the killing of Kara, Tisaras, and the rise of Ravana. He described the killing of Maricha, the kidnapping of Sita, the wailing of Rama, and the killing of Jatayu, the king of vultures. He described the meeting with Kambanda, seeing the river Pampa, the meeting with Sabari, and the meeting with Hanuman. He described the going to Rishamukha mountain, the meeting with Sugriva, the signing of the treaty, and the fight between Vali and Sugriva. He described about the killing of Vali, the agreement with Sugriva, the wailing of Tara, and the Rama living there during the rainy season. He described the anger of the lion, which was in Rama, the consolidation of the monkey army, their going to different directions and getting the report of different places on earth. He described the giving of the ring to Hanuman, their visit to the cave of Riksha, the fast unto death by the monkeys, and their interview with Sampathi. He described about the climbing of the mountain, the crossing of the ocean, the obeying of words of the ocean, and the meeting with the Mainaka mountain. He described about the killing of Simhika, about the seeing of the mountain of Lanka, entering into the Lanka at night, and thinking in solitude by Hanuman. He described about his seeing of Ravana, his seeing of Pushpaka Vimanam, his visiting the halls of drinking, as well as the visit to the apartments of Ravana's women. He described his entry to Asokavana, the seeing of Sita, presentation of the signet ring, and again seeing of Ravana. He described the threatening of Sita by the Rakshasis, the seeing of Trijata, the giving of the brooch by Sita, and the breaking of forest trees. He described the fight with the Rakshasis, the killing of the servants of Ravana, the catching of Hanuman, and the setting fire of Lanka by Hanuman with a great roar. He described the crossing back of the sea, the usurpation of Madhuvana, the consolation of Rama, and the handing over the brooch to him. He described the meeting with the god of the ocean and the building of the bridge by Nala, the crossing of the ocean and the siege of Lanka at night. He described about the relationship with Vibhishana, finalizing the strategy for the destruction of Ravana, killing of Kumbhakarna and Meghanada. He described the destruction of Ravana, the reunion with Sita in the enemy city, the crowning of Vibhishana, and the seeing of Pushpaka Vimana. He described Rama's return to Ayodhya, his reunion with Bharatha, festivities for the crowning of Rama, sending back of various armies, making his citizens happy, and sending away of Sita. That divine sage composed the things yet to happen in the world at that time in Uttara Kanda. Thus ends Chapter 3. I complained in video 1 about Chapter 1 and how it gave us the story, and it just was like, here's your story, and you're done, and like, what's the point? And, well, we just did that. Way more. Chapter 3 just detailed everything. And, oh, that was horrible to read. And why do this? Now, though, I must confess, Chapter 1 makes more sense. It's not really a great literary device. Essentially, what we've got, if you didn't get it, is Sage Valmiki was told a story by Narada. That was Chapter 1. He was given, this story about Rama. It was a very brief story, not very detailed. Sage Valmiki now had a revelation, seeing these two birds being killed. A revelation about verse. Essentially, if I get it correctly, a line of verse that somehow is special to him. I mean, I don't know. It's like, I felt like he suddenly became Shakespeare or something. I don't know. And I'm reading this in English where none of those descriptions of that verse matter. It's all out the window. So we're not getting the richness of that verse here. Then the Lord comes to him and says, you are going to write the story of Rama, which you've been told, but you're going to write the complete story. And so he sits in meditation and is then given a view of all the events. He kind of time traveled, for lack of a better word, and sees the whole thing. And now using that verse form that he discovered, is now going to write the story. Okay, I mean, it's interesting. It somewhat makes sense, and we see the motivation for how the story got started, even though it's really kind of weak to give us the story and then to give it us again and then have a revelation about a verse after seeing the death of a bird. It's I'm a little iffy on it. That's just me as a writer of numerous books who struggles over believable motivation and really doesn't like repetition. Oh boy, I'm feeling disappointed, and I'm only on chapter 3. Chapter 2 was okay. There was one problem though, and I wanted to go back and make note of this problem. It wasn't me. Where was it now? So for those who have studied the Ramayana's composition, you know that this is a book that was not written down front to back like Stephen King writes a novel. This is a book that has been given interpolations of different things over time. And there was a line I read, and you probably kind of looked twice when you heard me say this, and trust me, I did it in my own head. This is exactly how it is here. And this line is proof that this text has been edited, because there's no way you would write this in any story. Just even with the repetition that's in this book, no, I just, this is not gonna happen here. So there's been edits to this. Or this isn't so much an edit, but a translation issue where two lines are really, really close, and when translated into English, the subtlety of the different words is completely lost, so basically two sentences sound the same. That could be it. Let's go to these sentences in chapter 2. So the first verse, verse 21. Sage Valmiki, who knew Dharma well, entered his hermitage and, meditating on the incident, started composing other such stories. Okay, great. Verse 22. That sage, who was an expert in Dharma, entered the hermitage with his disciples, sat meditating, and started composing other stories. It's exactly the same line. Sage Valmiki, that sage, who knew Dharma well, who was an expert in Dharma, entered the hermitage. The only difference is one says with the disciples. The other one doesn't say the disciples came with him. Meditating on the incident, sat meditating, started composing other such stories, and started composing other stories. Oh my God. Oh my God. That wasn't me. This is here. I feel like I've done nothing but complain, and we're only on the second video. And hopefully you're still with me. Maybe you're not, because you don't want to hear me complain. I don't know. I'm hoping it gets better as we delve into the story and get away from this narration. Narration is always tough. And it was like this in the Srimad Bhagavatam too. I think that's all I'm going to say. The rest of it, there's nothing to comment on, other than we got a big old preview of what's to come in detail. So until next time, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.